Well, a U.S. official tells CBS News that Israel has notified the U.S. that it intends to launch a limited ground incursion into Lebanon. That operation could begin as soon as today. Israel has ramped up its strikes on Iranian proxy groups across the region. An Israeli airstrike struck an apartment building in central Beirut earlier today. It's the first attack in that part of the Lebanese capital in nearly 2 decades. The IDF carried out additional airstrikes in southern Lebanon as well. Meanwhile, Yemen's Houthi-run health ministry says at least 4 people are dead and more than 24 injured by an Israeli strike yesterday. The Israeli military says the attack targeted Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. The escalation follows the Israeli military killing of Hezbollah's leader in an airstrike on Friday. Now the group's acting leader is vowing to continue its battle with Israel despite much of its top command being killed recently. CBS News foreign correspondent Chris Livesay has more.
We're seeing some of the clearest signs yet of Israel's preparation for an expansion of the conflict. Dozens and dozens of tanks, armored fighting vehicles, and bulldozers, virtually everything you would expect for a ground invasion. And this comes just days after Hezbollah confirmed the targeted killing of the head of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, and in the face of ongoing airstrikes in southern Beirut and in southern Lebanon, just a few miles from here. Now, if Israel is to mount this ground invasion, it comes after days and days of Israel making these warnings. But on the other side of that border with Lebanon await tens of thousands of Hezbollah fighters, many of them hardened by fighting in Syria, not to mention tens of thousands of rockets. There's also a long reputation in southern Lebanon and of Hezbollah using explosive devices along the road, using improvised bombs, booby traps, and suicide bombers. Chris Livesay, CBS News, Northern Israel.
Let's bring in CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd. She's also a former assistant secretary for counterterrorism and threat prevention at the Department of Homeland Security. Samantha, what more are we learning about Israel's possible ground operations in Lebanon?
Well, we're learning that the Israeli government has reportedly given notice to the administration that they intend to launch a limited ground incursion into Lebanon. This comes as no great surprise to anyone who's been following the conflict over the past several weeks. Israel has been increasingly striking further into Lebanese territory to try to mitigate the threat posed by Hezbollah. And Israel has also been repositioning assets within Israel itself, ostensibly in preparation for that ground invasion. Now, what remains to be seen is how limited exactly that will be in nature, whether it is in fact contained to southern Lebanon, and whether the strikes into the heart of Beirut do continue, Lindsay.
Well, so Israel has killed 7 top Hezbollah commanders, including the group's leader, in the past 10 days. How has that changed their operations?
Well, Lindsay, it's not just Hezbollah leaders. In fact, Israel has methodically been striking and assassinating the leadership of Iranian-backed proxy groups, terrorist groups, for several weeks now, whether it's Hezbollah, Hamas, or other Iranian proxy groups. This has had an impact on these proxy groups' command and control structure and its capabilities. In addition to that, the pager and walkie-talkie attack that Israel reportedly launched earlier this month did also wound likely thousands of Hezbollah fighters. So it is certainly the case that these terrorist proxy groups' capabilities have been diminished. The outstanding question is whether the Iranian regime will make a strategic calculus that they want to rearm Hezbollah and others in order to launch a more direct assault, a more escalated assault against the state of Israel.
What is Iran weighing when it comes to its response, and what kind of capabilities does it have?
Well, Iran has significant traditional military capabilities, including a significant arsenal of missiles. Hezbollah, for its part, has over 100,000 missiles that do have the capability to strike within the heart of Israel. Israel has sophisticated air defense systems, which would go into play if that occurred. But Iran has a very sophisticated traditional military arsenal, which it uses to supply proxy groups like the Houthis, like Hezbollah. At the same time, Iran has a global terrorist network with operatives all around the world that it could choose to activate, which it has activated, to strike not just Israel, but to strike Americans as well, based upon perceptions of U.S. complicity in both the war in Gaza as well as these assassination attempts. So Iran could choose to flip that switch rearm these groups, launch another direct attack against Israel, and potentially activate operatives around the world. What Iran is weighing is whether it wants to get into a direct conflict, not just with Israel, but with the United States. The US has deployed and repositioned a very significant amount of military assets in the Middle East, Lindsay. And those assets would come into play if there was a more escalated response by Iran and its proxies.
What is the U.S. doing to prevent a potential regional war from happening?
Well, from a military perspective, the United States spending likely billions of dollars to put an additional carrier group, air capabilities, air defense systems, troops in the region is a measure to both defend the state of Israel, defend U.S. citizens in the region, help with any kind of evacuation, but also to deter Iran's proxies from a more direct attack by showing that they would likely be unsuccessful based upon U.S. military capabilities in the region. I also, based on my experience working with Iran, on the Iran nuclear deal and other matters, would render a guess, Lindsay, that the United States is likely engaged in some sort of back channel message passing with the regime in Iran to convince them not to escalate the situation further. One, because Iran is unlikely to be successful, but two, the cost for Iran would be so significant in terms of financial outlays, weapons outlays, and potentially more sanctions that it's just not worth it. So that back channel private diplomacy as well as the military deterrence are two key tools here, in addition, of course, to the diplomacy that the U.S. and others are engaged in.
Sam Vinograd, thank you so much.